And what was Baggio's title, Father?
He was head of the prefect for bishops.
Okay.
He named the bishops in the world.
He didn't have
Okay.
a connection to Cardinal McCarrick, did he?
I believe he named McCarrick
That's
bishop.
what I read too.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Just
yes,
just an interesting fact. Go
yes.
ahead.
I'm a soldier for Christ. I'm a soldier for Christ.
Good friend, Father Charles Murr, retired priest from New York, is in studio. And we've been talking about what Freemasonry is and the question about has Freemasonry infiltrated the Vatican? And the Cardinal Gagnon, had been in the Vatican, and Pope Paul VI asked him to do something. Father, can you tell us what did Cardinal Gagnon what was he asked to do?
Well, first of all, it was at the time it was Bishop Gagnon.
Oh, okay, I didn't know
and
that.
so
75, was that 1975?
75, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Pope Paul VI was very concerned about the state of the church.
Yeah, statements he made, yeah, I get it.
He was a good pope.
Mm-hmm.
He was a very good pope. He was a little bit weak
Yeah.
as far as discipline. He was great on.
And didn't he trust people a little bit too much?
I think that's safe to say.
Yeah.
I think that's safe to say. Yes, he did. I think he was an optimist, and he believed in the goodness of people.
Yeah.
And
That's a fair statement.
That's not a bad thing
No,
to
that's
believe
me.
in, right?
That's me. I'm the
we all
same way.
we all do that, but he also trusted some people who shouldn't have been trusted. And at any rate, under Paul VI had a great right-hand man whose name was Benelli.
Okay.
He also became Cardinal Benelli, but at the time he was the substitute, which was the man who really ran the Secretary of State.
Mm-hmm.
The Pope asked for an investigation of the Roman curia.
Well, the head. Oh my
Now
God.
this is sort of apropos of what's going on today. The problem with the church is the Roman curia. It always has been. You would ask Martin Luther, he would agree with me. That's about the only thing that Luther and I agree on.
Hundreds of years. Okay.
The Roman curia was the problem. So Benelli had received very credible testimony that there were members of the Roman curia who were in fact Freemasons.
Wow.
The most important among them was the man, his name was Sebastian Baggio, Baggio. Sebastian Cardinal Baggio.
Ooh.
Cardinal Baggio was in charge of the creation of bishops. He was in the congregation for bishops. Just as a parenthesis,
Wow.
manga parenthesis, the same congregation that Cardinal Willett today runs, and Cardinal Willett was also a student of Cardinal Gagnon's.
Interesting.
Right? But anyway, Benelli, seeing these charges and understanding that there was a charge, a very strong one, and by credible witnesses, and among them either three or four cardinals themselves who brought evidence of Baggio being a member of the Masonic Lodge.
And what was Baggio's title, Father?
He was head of the prefect for bishops.
Okay.
He named the bishops in the world.
He didn't have a
Okay.
connection to Cardinal McCarrick, did he?
I believe he named McCarrick
That's what
bishop.
I read too.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Just
yes.
just an interesting fact. Go
Yes.
ahead.
Anyway, the investigation, the Pope agreed to it.
Yep.
It's called a visitation,
Okay.
and he wanted a visitation of the entire Roman curia.
Wow.
And that is to say all of the offices that work for the Pope.
Yeah.
That everything that makes the church run,
Got it.
everything that backs up the Pope. Okay,
I get it.
when he
His
says
advisors.
something, when he says something, it's backed up by this congregation, that congregation, right? Anyway, this was begun. It was begun. The Pope agreed, and the Pope also agreed to name Bishop Gagnon, Edward Gagnon, the French Canadian, to be the apostolic visitor of this visit to the Roman Curia.
Okay.
For 3 years, Bishop Gagnon investigated the Roman Curia. He spoke to everyone who worked in the Roman Curia. Everyone, every single person. It took 3 years. He finished his study, and he finished his study in 1978.
Can I interrupt you?
Yes.
Aren't you the one that helped him put the document together?
I helped Gagnon organize papers,
See?
but,
Okay.
but
Go
that's
ahead.
as far as I went. I didn't read any
All
of
right,
any of
all
the
right.
the information.
I want to
was
make
on
that
them,
point
okay?
that you're firsthand.
Yeah.
Okay.
I helped him. We were living in the same house, and only we were next door neighbors in rooms.
Good.
And we were very good friends at this time.
Go ahead.
So Gagnon there was a 3-volume study.
Wow.
That was 3 volumes. Were the results of his studies. He brought them to Pope Paul VI.
Yes.
Who was received an audience. Major concern was to get Cardinal Baggio out of the Congregation for Bishops,
Okay.
which the Pope agreed to.
Did Cardinal Baggio know that Bishop Gagnon was trying to get him out?
It seems safe to say that Cardinal Baggio knew everything that was happening everywhere. And a pretty amazing thing.
That
He
is.
was the most. I think he was better informed than the Pope of.
He was
as
very
to what was-
influential in the
Yes, he
church.
was very influential.
Yeah.
Most of the bishops of the world owed the fact that they were bishops
Wow.
to Baggio.
Well, it makes sense.
So he
And
was the
many
bishop-
and,
he
and
was
many
the
of the
bishop maker.
cardinals,
Yeah, he was
many
the
of-
bishop maker.
Many of
Right.
the cardinals in the world, most of them, became cardinals because he made them archbishops of places that they were going to be made
He was
cardinals.
the king pin maker.
He was. He was the power behind the throne.
Yeah,
right?
got it.
And he would also spend, you should know this too, he would also spend much of his vacation time visiting these places.
That's interesting.
Remote places in Africa, Indonesia,
Yeah.
Asia, visiting places that had newly made cardinals who didn't know anyone. He would go to visit them so that when they would come to Rome, they would have a friend in the curia.
He knew
Him.
how to deal with people.
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
Anyway, Pope Paul VI agreed to the conclusions of the investigation, but the Pope died shortly thereafter. He was very, very ill toward the end, and didn't move on this.
What did he say? Didn't he say, "I'm going to have to leave that to the next"?
Leave it
pope"?
to
Okay.
the
next pope.
to the next pope.
Okay.
Right. He died on the 6th of August in 78.
Yep. Transfiguration.
There was, of course, the conclave, and I won't get into the whole thing of the conclave. It's a little bit different than most people that I know who have written about it were saying.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
You took 3 hours with me in an interview, and if people want more on that you did talk about that. We won't talk about
The
it
conclave,
now.
yeah.
The conclave and lots more. But if you do want that, call the 877-526-2151 number. Make a little donation. We'll get you 3 hours of Father. But continue, Father.
Suffice it to say that at this time, Benelli,
Yeah.
who was the Secretary of State, Undersecretary of State, was now Cardinal Archbishop of Florence.
Yes.
Benelli ran the conclave pretty well. When Benelli saw that there was a stalemate, he pulled a rabbit out of the hat. And that was Cardinal Luciani, who became John Paul I.
Wow.
Right? He was elected Pope. One of the first things that Benelli asked him to do as Pope was to call Gagnon and to read the conclusion of this 3-year study of the Roman Curia.
Good.
To start his pontificate off correctly. Right? In other words, what he was inviting him to do
love it.
was clean house.
Exactly.
Right? Now, this
Father,
is... Yeah.
The study, did it indicate that there was an infiltration of Masons in the Roman Curia? Is that what the study was alleging or putting forth?
In a word, yes.
Okay.
In a word, yes.
Yes or no?
Among other things.
Yeah.
But because there were also moral issues, there were a lot of issues.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
we're dealing with them right now.
But principle, yes, we
Well
are.
said. Yeah.
Principle among them was the Masonic influence in the church. Yes, absolutely, and that it had to be eliminated because this was disrupting everything. Yeah. Pope John Paul I, after 32 days.
Yep.
In his pontificate, called in Sebastian Cardinal Baggio,
Uh-oh.
head of the prefect for the Congregation of Bishops, and removed him from his place in the Roman Curia. And in those days, not that you had to do it, but it was just done by protocol. To kick someone out, you kicked that man up. So what he was saying was, Venice is the seat of Venice is
It's open,
vacant.
yeah.
It's open. You can become Archbishop of Venice. It won't be a disgrace for you to leave Rome, taking that place. I've left it open because I was the Archbishop of Venice. And Venice is not only just for an archbishop, it's a patriarch.
Yes.
Right? So that was what he was proposing. Baggio, being no fool, rejected that.
Not only did he reject it, wasn't there a conflict?
There was a conflict of a shouting match.
Yes, thank you.
And Baggio is the Mason according
That the
to
documents.
Gagnon's
Yep.
Yes.
Bishop Gagnon's report.
That's right.
Got
So
it.
you have a rather timid Pope, John Paul I. People know him as the smiling Pope, right?
Yeah, sure.
But he was a very good man, very strong man, but timid, and he's in a shouting match with you want to talk about a bully.
Yeah.
Baggio was a bully,
That's what I read.
and who refused what was being told or given to him by the Pope. He refused it. That was late at night. This was close to 9 o'clock at night in the Vatican, just the two of them. Baggio was called over for this private audience with the Pope outside of office hours. The Pope died that night. Now, am I saying that the Pope was poisoned? Was he was strangled? No. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that was the coincidence.
That's how it worked.
There was a shouting match.
After a shouting match with
Yes.
a Mason who
Yes.
was
Yes.
who was the cardinal.
Yes. He died that night.
Go to vmpr.org and download the app today. It just might change your life. I'm Matthew Arnold for Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
Virgin Most Powerful Radio, sharing the gospel with clarity and charity.